Okay, let's dive right into an urgent breaking alert for every network engineer and sysadmin watching this explainer. The perimeter, as we've always known it, it's basically collapsed. We're looking at a fundamental shift in how enterprise networks are being breached right now. So, forget the usual alerts about employee phishing or random web server exploits. This week, the cybersecurity battlefield has moved directly to the control plane. We're going to do a detailed breakdown of these vulnerabilities because for those of you managing infrastructure, this requires immediate attention, strict security reconfiguration, and some seriously rigorous log checking. Let's get into it. You see, attackers just aren't bothering to break into the building through employee laptops anymore. It's too noisy. Instead, they are systematically targeting your SD-WAN managers, your firewalls, your UniFi controllers, and your OT gateways. They don't want to just be a guest in a single room anymore, right? They want the master keys. They want the security cameras, the alarm panels, and the architectural blueprints of your entire network. They're going straight after the exact tools you rely on to manage access, routing, and visibility. And this brings us to a frankly terrifying scenario for any incident response team. How do you respond to a crisis when the very tools you use to detect the breach are the ones that have been compromised? Imagine you're investigating a series of suspicious network logins. You go to pull the logs, but the logging infrastructure itself has been tampered with. It forces defenders to ask the absolute most uncomfortable question in our industry: can we actually trust our own telemetry? When edge devices and management planes are breached, you aren't just fighting an intruder. You're fighting a ghost who has administrative control over your own visibility. So we have to shift our mindset immediately. The old target surface of emails and laptops, that's been completely eclipsed by a new, highly critical target surface, your network's control plane. Think about it. If an attacker compromises one laptop, well, it's a localized problem. But if they compromise the VPN, they've literally got the front door open for everyone. If they hit your SD-WAN manager, they can alter network routing and security policies enterprise-wide. The target has moved from the edges of the room straight to the heart of the enterprise network. You just can't treat these edge systems like another server waiting for a convenient weekend maintenance window anymore. Let's look at the hard data for a second. We're seeing devastating, high-severity CVEs hitting Splunk, Cisco, and Ubiquiti systems directly at the edge. Take Splunk Enterprise, for example. CVE 2026-20253 is a CVSS 9.8 flaw that allows unauthenticated arbitrary file creation or truncation through a Postgres sidecar endpoint. So sysadmins, listen up. You need to be actively monitoring your Postgres sidecar endpoint logs for unusual truncation commands right now. On Cisco Catalyst SD-WAN Manager, we're dealing with CVE 2026-20245, which allows root command execution via a crafted file. And Ubiquiti UniFi OS, it's seeing active in the wild exploits with perfect 10.0 CVSS scores. This leads to complete unauthorized account access and command injection. Guys, this is the literal definition of a critical infrastructure emergency. Now, let's go back to that terrifying question we brought up earlier. If an attacker compromises your Splunk logging infrastructure using that 9.8 CVE we just discussed, you're effectively flying blind. You are forced to ask if your own SIEM telemetry is lying to you. Really think about the implications for your log-checking routines here. If the system gathering the alerts is the system that was breached, your standard audit trails are essentially useless. An attacker with access to your SIEM can manipulate timestamps, delete unauthorized access logs, and effectively erase their footprints while they wander through your internal network. To counter this, you absolutely must adopt a defense-in-depth strategy. You need to be shipping your core SIEM access logs to a secondary, immutable backup server so attackers can't just easily wipe their tracks. And hey, let's do a quick reality check on that recent FortiBleed scare while we're at it. The real threat wasn't some mysterious crazy news 0 day. It was completely avoidable, poor password hygiene, and missing multi-factor authentication. There was this massive panic about exposed FortiGate credentials, but Fortinet confirmed this activity actually stems from brute force attacks against stale accounts. Sometimes the exploit isn't a clever memory corruption bug, Sometimes it's literally just a password that should have been rotated 6 months ago. For your perimeter devices, you need to immediately configure aggressive session timeouts, terminate active admin sessions, and carefully audit your authentication logs for multiple failed attempts against dormant accounts. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates the new extortion lifecycle. Attackers are stealing massive amounts of sensitive data from the inside without ever triggering alarms by shutting down your factory operations. Just look at the recent incidents at Novo Nordisk and Tata Electronics. It's a stark contrast between business as usual and silent devastation. Their operations were completely unaffected. The factories kept running smoothly. Yet at Novo Nordisk, attackers claimed a terabyte of stolen internal IT data and demanded $25 million. At Tata, hundreds of thousands of design files were allegedly leaked. The huge lesson here is that a quiet network does not mean a secure network. Incident response now must basically assume that data exfiltration is happening silently in the background. So how exactly are they getting this initial access to pivot so deeply into the network? Well, cybercrime groups are running a really ruthless three-step economy. They're using info stealers not just for consumer fraud anymore, but to harvest valid session cookies that let them step right past your enterprise MFA setup. Microsoft recently disrupted massive command and control infrastructure for the Amadey and StealC malware. But the damage model has completely evolved. These aren't just stealing local browser passwords. They are scraping live session tokens and VPN credentials. Think about it. Once an attacker has a valid active session cookie, your multi-factor authentication prompt is completely irrelevant. As far as your network is concerned, they're already authenticated. To combat this, security teams have to configure conditional access policies that flag anomalous session token usage, look for things like sudden impossible travel originating from a copied cookie. And it gets worse. Groups like DragonForce are completely evading detection by routing their backdoor command and control traffic directly through implicitly trusted Microsoft Teams relays. Symantec reported operators using a Go-based tool called backdoor.turn, and it explicitly abuses Microsoft Teams' turn relay servers. To your enterprise network monitoring tools and to your log audits, this traffic looks exactly like legitimate encrypted outbound video or audio data. It just gets a free pass. You need to immediately configure your firewalls and proxy logs to scrutinize outbound connections to these trusted services. You're looking for persistent, long-held connections or really unusual data volume spikes. Now, make no mistake here, AI isn't inventing magic hacks, but it is absolutely supercharging the speed of attacks. It's turning bad security hygiene into an immediate, catastrophic risk. Just as intelligence agencies have warned, AI is an accelerator. Notice how aggressively the activation curve is compressing between when a vulnerability, like that Splunk or Cisco bug, is discovered and when it's actively exploited in the real world. It produces faster phishing, cheaper social engineering, and rapid exploitation code. If your sysadmin team takes weeks to test and deploy a patch for edge infrastructure, AI ensures the attackers are going to beat you to the punch, for sure. So, what does this all mean? Execution is the crucial point here. Here is your rapid-fire action desk checklist, and I literally cannot stress enough how vital it is that you isolate your management interfaces and rigorously audit your SIEM logs right this second. First, prioritize patching SD-WAN managers, VPNs, firewalls, and your SIEM infrastructure. Second, assume those passwords are in a stealer log somewhere out there and rotate all admin credentials today. Third, enforce MFA universally, no exceptions for legacy admin accounts. Fourth, heavily restrict your exposure. Management interfaces should never, ever be facing the public internet, period. And finally, you need to actively hunt. Dive into those logs, verify their integrity, and look for rogue admin accounts or strange outbound traffic spikes. You absolutely must treat your edge and management plane systems with total urgency, because they are the literal gates and security cameras of your entire digital enterprise. The story of this week is not just about a single vulnerability or one specific ransomware gang. It's a unified, undeniable pattern. Attackers are migrating en masse toward the systems that manage access, routing, visibility, and trust. So the old concept at the perimeter is back, but it's evolved. Today, your management plane is the most critical border you have to defend. I want to leave you with this final, critical thought from the briefing. When the control plane is compromised, the attacker is no longer just inside the network. They are holding the map. Just think about what that means for your organization. Have you secured your management plane yet? Or are you handing the keys and the map directly to the attackers? Take that action checklist back to your teams today. Lock down those management interfaces and start auditing your telemetry. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and stay vigilant out there.